Microsoft Inspire wraps, and we've got everything you need to know about announcements from Barracuda, BitTitan, Tech Data, CloudJumper, Pax8, and Zyxel. Plus, we go into part 2 of our Profit Fuel series and go on a wild hardware safari. It's ChannelPro Weekly, episode 111, Factories in the Cloud. Hello, everyone, and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 111. 111. How about that? My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and host of this fine audio program. Joining me this week and pretty much every week, most weeks, the globetrotter himself, the world traveler, the one, the only executive editor, Rich Freeman.
And of course, as my glamorous globetrotting continues, I am broadcasting this week from Anaheim, California.
Ooh, and Rich, what are you doing in Anaheim, California, other than maybe watching hockey? You're not there. Well, it's not hockey season yet, so that can't be it. You're going to Disneyland. That's what it is. Sure,
yeah, or the next best thing, the even better Wonderland here in Anaheim was the SMB Tech Fest conference, which took place here yesterday. That last week on the show, episode 110, we had Dave Seibert on. He's the impresario, as we said, of SMB Tech Fest. That conference took place yesterday, and I was here with our good buddy Joel Zabespinner.
Oh, good. And how was Mr. Seibert's show? How'd it go?
It was good. It was good. He had interesting speakers, and some folks that we know and have had on the podcast were speaking there. Carl Palachuk, Eric Simpson, Josh Lieberman were all speaking. A lot of security content. Very good. Good sized crowd. So it was a good event.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of security talk, not just at his show, but lots of shows, because all the nefarious people of the world that we talk about day in and day out are always still trying to do bad things, and we need to be secure against them.
And I suppose we need to thank them for that on some weird, sick level, because it's creating this giant opportunity for a lot of people in the security field.
It's creating jobs. Crime creates jobs. Jobs create crime. This is a weird, sick and twisted world we live in, Rich.
Indeed.
But speaking of sick and twisted world, we were talking just before the show started about how Microsoft had their big event that I keep wanting to call Ignite, because that's their other show, but it's actually Inspire.
Yes.
And I was saying that they should come up with show names that don't start with the same letter and sound alike.
There would be a lot less confusion in that case. And, so Ignite, I believe, is the event for IT professionals. The one for developers is Build. So it's harder to confuse Build with Inspire, right? It's the I. The letter I is the problem.
The letter I needs to be banned from show names, as well as the word one. Although Microsoft is like the one company that has like my pass to use the word one, because they are the ones that started it.
Oh, okay.
But even they could eventually overdo it.
Yeah.
But note to everyone else, you can't use the word one. No, that's not good. No one, whatever. So anyway, you did not go to Microsoft Inspire. You were not inspired to go because you showed up and you knocked on the door and they said, no Rich Freeman's allowed. Was that what I heard?
Well, that's close. So let me correct a few details in there. So for the second year running, Microsoft is not allowing media, not just Rich Freeman media, mind you, but any media into Inspire. And the background for that essentially is there used to be these two totally separate events, and one was the partner conference and one was this internal sales and marketing conference that they did every July, and they would introduce the field sales and marketing organization to all their top secret plans for the year ahead, and media has never been allowed inside that event. Last year, they sort of combined these more or less into one big show, and they just decided not to allow media into this one big show either, because they want to be able to talk about top secret plans with their partners. So couldn't get in for the second year in a row, but also for the second year in a row, refused to take no for an answer in a manner of speaking. So earlier this week, I was in Las Vegas, which is where Inspire happened. So was Joel, and we got ourselves as close to Inspire as we could. We couldn't go in, but we could get very near. And we second year running, we parked ourselves at a restaurant at the Mandalay Bay called Citizens. shout out to the folks at Citizens for putting up with us. We were there for long stretches of time. And we couldn't speak to Microsoft, but we did manage to get a whole bunch of sponsors, Microsoft partners, exhibiting at the show to come off the show floor and meet with us. So it was a productive few days in Las Vegas.
Well, that's good. If you can't work within the system, you work around the system.
Exactly.
I think that works quite well. So, and we do have a lot of stories to talk about from Microsoft Inspire. I almost said Ignite again, but I didn't. So that was good. Yeah, we got lots to talk about. And we had Dave on last week. And I believe that we are also going to try to get Dave on next week or the week after to talk about kind of what happened inside, because Dave is he's a Microsoft MVP. He's a Microsoft partner. He's on the board he's on a board, some kind of board. What board is he on again?
He is officially known, and this is a great title to have if you can get it. He is a Microsoft worldwide influencer. So he's part of this very special group of people who are plugged into senior folks at Microsoft and who are recognized as influencers in the channel.
That's good. So if there's anyone who can talk about Inspire and kind of break down Microsoft's announcements and what they talked about and how it's going to impact the channel, Dave would be the guy who could do it and give us a little bit more insight than just kind of the everyday, Microsoft partner. So it would be good to get him back on.
And in particular, I was talking with him obviously at his show yesterday, and one of the things he said on the last episode of the podcast was that the bad news from Microsoft got out ahead of the good news, right? So everyone was very upset about the stuff that for a while it looked like Microsoft was going to be taking away from them, and then they canceled those plans. But there are also all sorts of new incentive payments and stuff like that available from Microsoft that they didn't say anything about until this week. And I could speak in very broad terms about what they announced, but Dave said there's something like a 30 or 40 page document outlining all of these incentive payments, and he just hasn't had time between Inspire and his own show to look at that yet. So by the time we get him on here next for episode 112 or 113 or whatever, he'll have had a chance to digest that, and that'll be good. He'll be able to help us sort of understand where Microsoft is channeling some of its incentive payments now to drive certain partner behaviors.
Rich, was that a pun? Channeling?
Not an intentional one.
It was a good one, though. It was a good one. You're trying to take over my job as chief punster here on the show, or chief jokester. So no, that was good. Yeah, and there was a lot of questions left unanswered and a lot of confusion. So it'll be good to kind of go through that and get a deep dive, because let's face it, the Microsoft partnership and the Microsoft Partner Program is very, very important to lots and lots of people on the channel. So any changes, can be good or bad, but any changes is certainly going to be impacting a lot of channel partners. So we want to make sure that they know what to expect. But Microsoft wasn't the only one with news coming out of Inspire. In fact, you could say their third-party OEM partners were inspired to put out news of their own.
Yeah,
that's true.
Lots and lots of news from Microsoft partners, and I mean, this is an annual occurrence. These companies kind of save up some news and take advantage of the attention being paid to Microsoft during Inspire to announce all sorts of good Microsoft related stuff.
Yeah, and the first one that we're going to talk about is some news from Barracuda. Barracuda is going to be shipping some security solutions for the Microsoft Cloud. Why don't you break that down for us?
So two different things there from Barracuda, and one they announced this week during Inspire, another they actually announced last week, but we're just sort of getting around to reporting on it this week. So the thing they announced this week is new functionality in their CloudGen firewall product that connects with Azure Virtual WAN. So Azure Virtual WAN is a Microsoft service, basically sort of an SD-WAN service that you can get from Microsoft. Part of what is attractive about it, though, to especially companies with branch offices and remote offices, is it allows you to stream traffic directly from that remote office to the local or nearest Azure entry exit point. So rather than routing all of your traffic from your branch office in Sacramento, back to headquarters in Cleveland and then out to the internet, if there is an Azure virtual WAN entry point in San Francisco, you can just take advantage of that. So what the CloudGen firewall from Barracuda can do now is handle these local breakout policies, they're called, to support that functionality, to stream your traffic through the firewall to the nearest Azure vWAN, as they call it, connection point. And you can do it, it's tunable, you can send certain kinds of traffic directly out to Azure and route others back to headquarters if you prefer to do that. But it's all kind of built right into the firewall and easy to set up and easy to take advantage of. So that's announcement one. Last week, they launched an entirely new product that they're calling Cloud Security Guardian. And I'll explain what it does. And as I do so, you'll kind of get a sense for what is potentially kind of compelling about this product. So first thing it'll do is go out and discover all of the different public cloud assets that your company or your client's business is using. And as we all know, the bigger a company gets these days, the likelier it is that there are software as a service solutions being used out there that nobody even really knows about. It's just hard to kind of wrap your arms around all of the public cloud stuff going on within a company, even a smaller company. So Cloud Security Guardian goes out, it kind of inventories everything that's being used on the cloud. It collects configuration data from all of those different products. It compares the configuration settings to best practices. So it uses NIST standards, Center for Internet Security standards, so widely respected, recognized standards. It compares the current security posture of those public cloud solutions to those standards, and then issues a report, basically shows you, how compliant you are with security best practices. If a customer then at that point says, I want your help fixing any issues you've identified, you can go off, obviously, and do some project work remediating some of those things on a short-term basis. But the system will also continually monitor the customer's environment, looking for lapses in compliance, and in most cases, automatically remediate those issues as they appear. So for somebody who is not necessarily, somebody looking to cultivate a security practice, maybe specifically a cloud security practice, maybe you don't have a lot of expensive cloud security expertise in-house, you can kind of see how you could build a service, an offering just around this solution and go into client environments, do an assessment, provide an inventory of the systems to them, which has value in itself, but also this sort of best practices compliance report. That can produce some remediation work you can do for them, and then continual monitoring and remediation, which is recurring revenue. It's kind of an interesting way for some partners, at least, to get into a managed cloud security kind of offering.
Yeah, for sure. Now, does Barracuda, do they offer like a bundle, and are they rolling this in, or is that completely separate?
Cloud Security Guardian is completely separate.
Okay. All right. So and then the other announcement. Right, yeah, and is that bundled, or is that also separate?
That is bundled into the CloudGen firewall. If you're using a CloudGen firewall today, you now have that functionality, and there's no extra cost. Okay,
cool. So they're rolling that back out to other products and stuff. Cool. All right, excellent. And what did they say? Did they talk about any pricing or revenue opportunities, like what the revenue op is for the Cloud Guardian?
Good question. Now, I know from a pricing standpoint, the pricing on Cloud Security, I don't have specific numbers, but it's consumption based, essentially, based on the amount of resource that you're utilizing to assess and monitor customer environments.
Okay.
So as they like to put it, it's a value-based pricing scheme. Essentially, you're paying for what you use. And we did not talk too much about, specifically what the revenue opportunity is, what partners tend to make on this kind of an offering. I guess it would depend on how many you roll it out to and what you find, and how mature the client is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, very cool. But they are not the only ones doing cloud-based security stuff right now. BitTitan also has a new suite or a new service. Is this a Rich, tell us what it is.
Well, what's interesting, it's not just that Barracuda isn't the only company doing cloud security stuff. They're not the only company doing cloud security assessment stuff. This is turning into something of a theme, actually, in the security world, because again, it really is a good entry point kind of solution for a ChannelPro out there to go in and do security assessments for a customer. And so BitTitan this week announced a new product, totally new system for them called Voleer, Voleer. And it actually does two things. So one is it will go do security assessments for you and help you understand the current state of a customer's security posture and identify issues in need of mitigation. But it also does cloud spending optimization assessment for you. So it can look at Office 365 usage. It can look at Azure usage. There is functionality in place for Google G Suite as well, but obviously they were playing up the Microsoft angle at Inspire. But it'll go off, and just as a for example, if you've got a customer who is signed up for the E5 subscription on Office 365, and they're really only using the stuff that comes with E1, it'll kind of say, hey, you might be able to save a few bucks by, downgrading, if you will, to the E1 subscription. If the customer has a whole bunch of storage capacity, let's say in Azure, and they're using 25% of it, the system will point that out for you and give the customer an opportunity to save some of that money. Again, another kind of foundation for a cloud-related service offering that you can bring out to your customers. And it can be a source of project work. It can be a source of one-time revenues. And to the extent that you reassess the customer's environment on a regular basis, which is always a good idea.
I love this. I love this, Rich. Like, why can I not think of great business model opportunities like this, right? Like, yeah, I can make a business about trying to sell you cloud productivity, right? And I charge you for that. So I make money on selling you and you using cloud productivity. But then I can also make money on assessing your usage of the crap that I sold you and charge you more for that. And it looks like I'm saving you money. This is brilliant, Rich.
But maybe you are saving them money. You're charging them to save them, but maybe the saving presumably outweighs the extra expense.
But only because you sold it to them in the first place.
Right? And we thought it was the right thing to sell you at the time, but it turns out we were wrong. And hey, we could have just continued to overcharge you, but instead, as your trusted advisor, we're telling you, you don't actually need all that Azure resource you're paying for.
This is fantastic. Everybody jump on this. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. All right. So what, did they have anything else? They talked about it Inspire, or just this brilliant new assessment software to charge people to assess stuff that you already sold them?
Or hey, here's another scenario. What if somebody else sold it to them? And you can kind of come in as the hero and say, hey, that jerk overcharged you for Office 365. I'm going to save you some money on it.
Even better. Yeah. It's a competitive world out there, right? Yeah. Go after the people you didn't sell it to. And and then that work. Now, so what happens, Rich, if you are like a Microsoft partner and you sell a business Office 365, and another partner comes in and like steals them, can they steal that sub and then they make the recurring revenue on it, or how does that work?
That's how it works. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we were talking last week about the changes Microsoft made to partner program benefits. And one of the partners I quoted in my coverage of that issue is Amy Babinchak, who she's been a speaker at our events. And she kind of specializes in this, and not that she's trying to steal anyone's business, but she often comes across customers who say, I have an Office 365 partner and they stink. It's like I hate Office 365 because I hate the company that sold it to me. And Amy has really kind of made a specialty out of rescuing that situation for Microsoft. She'll go in and provide much better service and really help the customer get some value out of Office 365. And her reward for that, obviously, is she becomes the partner of record and collects the margin.
And so does the partner initiate that change, or does the customer initiate that change? Because it seems like I could build an entire business around spamming businesses and just having them change their partner of record to me because I'm a nice person.
Would that be spam?
I don't know. Probably, but it seems like I could get a whole lot of money for doing nothing.
Yeah, well, I question. How many customers would actually change the subscription for no reason whatsoever? But I mean, if you come in and give them a good reason to change, yeah, you could build a business around that.
Interesting. I'm sure there's many people watching and listening that have made businesses off of just that. So very cool. So that's what BitTitan's got going on. But alas, there is more. In fact, there are distributors at these Inspire shows and distributors who are doing things. And we've got a cloud. Okay, so let me follow this. Cloud Solution Factory.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a factory in the cloud that is building practices. So tech data is being a little loose and fancy free with the terminology here, because I just can't imagine a factory floating in the sky. So what are they actually building in said factory?
You were so close. The factory is building cloud solutions.
It's building now. It's not actually manufacturing them, though, right?
Gosh darn it, it's the next closest thing. So I mean, what they're doing is, so let's just say, for example, you had some interest in offering a cloud backup service, to your customers. You could go off and pick a backup solution and figure out how to configure it properly for your customers and get everything set up right. And then you could kind of work on your own marketing collateral and sales sheets. And I mean, you could do all the work that goes into building that solution and bringing it to market, or you can go to the Tech Data Cloud Solution Factory, where they have done all of that for you. The factory has churned out this pre-assembled, pre-validated solution, and there are a number of them for backup, but all sorts of other categories as well. There are 16 of them in all that they introduced this week. And they're kind of ready to go, basically.
Well, that takes all the fun out of doing all the work, though, right? If it's already done for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you consider work fun, then yeah, maybe the Cloud Solution Factory isn't for you. But if you want to get to market fast, this could be helpful.
So, like many things, distributors make being a reseller super easy. And a lot of times they just do this stuff for free because they get more business out of it. So this just if you're a Tech Data partner, you use Tech Data as a distributor, like you can just use this tomorrow, today.
Exactly. And so taking a few steps back, Tech Data, like all the big distributors, is making a transition from the older era of distribution, where it was just shipping out shrink wrapped products, into this new era of today's technology, cloud, IoT, security, et cetera. So cloud is a big piece of Tech Data's future, and they want to bring partners along with them to the cloud. And so there were actually two announcements this week out of Tech Data, both of which are related to that journey that they're on and that they're trying to bring the partners along on. And one of those is these new offerings on the Cloud Solution Factory, designed to make it easier, faster for their partners, and especially the maybe traditional VARs, to roll out cloud solutions. The other announcement they made had to do with their digital cloud practice builder offering. So
digital practice builder. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot of adverbs in there.
Yeah, exactly. Let me break that down for you a little bit. So So there's this idea, obviously, that if you are a traditional VAR who's been doing business with tech data through the years, just buying hardware and reselling it to your customers, and now you want to make that transition to next generation technologies as well, you've got to build that practice. You've got to figure out what kind of expertise you need to have in-house, how you're going to price this, et cetera. And so what Tech Data has done is assemble best practices for practice building, and
somebody use the word practice in one story here.
Yeah, exactly. We're just beating that word to death.
I could call it one practice.
Don't give them ideas.
Yeah, keep going.
So they've created these different practice builder methodologies where they can kind of walk you through everything that you really need to think about to get a practice off the ground. And they do this in IoT now. They do it in security. They do it in cloud. So they have practice builder. They specifically have cloud practice builder. Last October, they introduced a digital version of the cloud practice builder. So originally, it was a really hands-on kind of engagement, face-to-face with folks from Tech Data, and they could only really accommodate a few dozen partners a year through that process. So they created a self-paced, all online kind of version of it last October. And what they have done now is augment the materials, the courses that they originally rolled out in October with a whole bunch of new stuff. So the stuff that they started out with last October really was kind of designed to get the partner from their old world where they were reselling product into this new world of having a cloud service practice of one kind or another. And now what they're doing, this is not Tech Data's terminology, but this is kind of how I'm thinking about it. If that was getting your undergraduate degree, the stuff that they rolled out this week is a little bit more like the graduate degree. It's like, okay, you've got the practice up and running, but now where can you sort of take it? And so they've created what they call paths, where you can go a little deeper around working with a vendor, like working with Microsoft or AWS, or go a little deeper around a particular area, a particular kind of cloud service, whether that's backup or storage or disaster recovery or something like that. So they've structured this whole thing so that you can kind of step into it wherever it feels appropriate for you. If you already have a cloud business up and running, but you're looking to add some services to it, you can skip the undergraduate part and just go straight into the graduate degrees if that works for you. If you're really kind of starting from square one, then the best way to go is probably going to be
one square. One square.
Yeah. That would be.
How did I get on this kick again today? I tell you.
I don't know. Well, especially since this supposedly drives you nuts, and now you're giving them all these ideas.
I got to stop. All right. So if they want to skip around that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. I mean, so if you're starting from one square or square one, you can begin with just building the cloud practice itself, and then kind of advance to some of these solution and vendor paths that they announced this week.
Very cool. All right. Yeah, they do a lot of cloud stuff, and it's hard to follow all of what they offer. But one thing that I can point out, and it's something that we've talked about a lot in the past, is that if you work with a big distributor like Tech Data or Cynix or what's another one, Rich? What's another distributor?
Ingram, Cynix,
Ingram,
D&H,
any of those big ones. They offer a mind-boggling amount of things that you as a partner don't take advantage of, and you probably should. So we've talked about that in shows past. We've got some articles on the site about it. So go to the ChannelPro Network site and just like search our content for distributors, and you'll find lots of really good tips and products and services and stuff that they offer that could make you a lot of money and very easily that you're probably not taking advantage of. So do that. It's good advice, Rich.
10 minutes of research might turn something up that could be really valuable, because it's true. There's just, people are very busy, and even though they're getting emails and calls from their distributors all the time, they just don't know about a lot of this stuff. So yeah, you carve out just a little bit of time, you might find something good.
Yeah, and they're friendly. They're friendly about it. Like, they want to do this stuff for you. And you know what else is something that's friendly, Rich?
What's that?
CloudJumper.
Yes.
They announced something friendly, at least so it says. They announced Azure friendly, and who doesn't want to be friendly to Azure? Good old Azure, always nice to you.
Yes.
Processing your stuff. They have some new Azure friendly software and alliances, so that's kind of vague. So why don't we dive into that story a little bit?
Yeah, and I will call it. They I think in total they must have published it was either 4 or 5 press releases this week. There's a lot of news out of CloudJumper this week, but
and this is another company that normally announces a ton of stuff. So I'm kind of curious.
You're right. It's surprised me a little bit. And part of the reason for that has to do with what I'll sort of focus in on, which is the sort of the connecting theme to a lot of what they were talking about this week. And we've spoken before on the podcast about Windows Virtual Desktop, which is this new cloud service coming soon from Microsoft. It's in public preview now, has been since March. And it's basically a complete Windows desktop in the cloud. Again, it's in preview now. It's not generally available. The expectation is that it will be in general availability by the end of the year. And you just watch, folks. You just watch. The Microsoft marketing machine is going to begin pushing this to all of its customers, all of its Office 365 customers, its Microsoft 365 customers. It's going to be bundling it together with Office 365 at great rates. This, I believe, is the next Office 365. And
you know what I say, Rich? I gotta stop my screen share here. This is what I say. Welcome to what should have happened in 2008. How they have not done this until now is mind-boggling to me.
It's an interesting question. What changed along the way?
I don't know, but it seems like this was such an obvious thing for them to do 10 years ago, right? With right after Windows, moving into Windows, within the Windows 7 lifetime for sure, but like when Windows 8 came out, that should have been launched with a VDI option. So it is really interesting that this is now. I mean, better late than never, I guess. But if you would have asked anybody running Windows 95 if Microsoft was going to do VDI in the future, right? They probably would have said, hey, of course they are. Like turn of the century stuff. Welcome to the year 2000.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is not just sort of VDI necessarily the way it's been done. I mean, this is truly coming straight out of Azure. And so I don't know if there are bandwidth issues or capacity issues that maybe were gating factors before. But it does, and
if you build enough data centers, Rich, usually that's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly. And who can afford to build data centers more than, Microsoft? So they'll probably be okay as far as that goes.
I will say there are client use problems around bandwidth. And especially when you get a lot of people using something like that at once. But it just seems like if that's all something that can be mitigated. You can get enough bandwidth. You could even get enough bandwidth 10 years ago. So it's just interesting. I find it fascinating that it's 2019 and we're now finally just talking about Microsoft's virtual desktop solution. So anyway, keep going.
The thing of it is, in a lot of ways, we're not talking about it enough. And again, part of this is because it hasn't really reached market yet. But and
we will be talking about it a lot. This is going to be a big disruptor in how and PCs and OSs and how this is used.
And now is the time to be familiarizing yourself with that and taking advantage of the fact that the opportunity to be the first mover on this is there, because I met with CloudJumper at Inspire and asked, how much chatter is there out there about WVD, Windows Virtual Desktop, and how many partners do you think are even aware of it right now? And the awareness, as far as they can tell, is very, very low. So CloudJumper specializes in provisioning and managing cloud workspaces. And so Windows Virtual Desktop is right up their alley. they have been plugged into the WVD development process and rollout process from a very early stage. So a big part of why they have all these announcements this week, and they're very excited to be at Inspire and so on, is they see this huge opportunity for themselves and their partners around WVD. And so one of the things that they announced this week is a new release of their Cloud Workspace Management Suite, version 5.3, and it has a number of different sort of interesting features in it. But one of those features is integrated support for WVD. Now, it's a product that's still in preview, but if you want to, as they put it, kick the tires a little bit on that product and start playing around with it and maybe do some proofs of concept, roll it out on a limited basis with a customer or two, it's integrated right into their Cloud Workspace Management Suite right now. And that gives you an opportunity to begin doing that. You start thinking about some of the issues people might run into, partners might run into once they are selling this to their customers. And if you've got a customer in architecture or engineering or any field that involves graphics intensive workloads, that can be an issue if you're streaming your desktop or your workspace across the cloud. So CloudJumper has been partnering for a while with NVIDIA on virtual GPU technology and incorporating that into the Cloud Workspace Management Suite. But one of the announcements they made this week is a sort of taking that alliance to the next level. And so they're kind of going deeper with NVIDIA, if you will, so that the two companies can really more closely, more deeply integrate NVIDIA virtual GPU technology into the CloudJumper product to eliminate that potential objection, the concern on a customer's part that I'm not going to be able to do my graphics heavy workloads through that WVD client.
So do they actually shift the workload to another cloud then in order to process that?
No. So Microsoft has a very close relationship with NVIDIA, and you can get, through Azure, you can get virtual instances that run on Tesla GPUs.
Oh, okay, so they have NVIDIA hardware.
Yeah.
And there, okay. So this isn't, so even though you're running a virtual desktop, with processing done in the cloud, it's still all in Microsoft's cloud, right? Even if you are doing processing on NVIDIA, because it's not their cloud that's doing it, because they have a cloud service for that. So I didn't know if they were like shifting data from cloud to cloud. It's like, wow, that's pretty crazy. We'll shift it to the NVIDIA cloud, and then we'll shift it to the Western Digital cloud for storage, and I just thought it'd be kind of fun to move things around like that. That'd be pretty inefficient, but but it'd be fun.
It would be interesting. So now you've got your WVD business, and you've eliminated concerns about graphics, but now you want to kind of build a complete bundle, a complete offering for the end users. And
you need a factory for that.
You know what you need, Matt? Your favorite word. You need hardware, right? Because hardware is not going away completely in this world of Windows virtual desktops. And so another piece of the announcement from CloudJumper this week was a deeper alliance with ICYMI, which is a thin client computing company. They make both the software, the operating system for that, and various interesting hardware, thin client devices. And so ICYMI and CloudJumper are going to be working together on tying their products together so that you as a partner can combine the ICYMI operating system, one of their thin client devices, the CloudJumper Cloud Workspace Management Suite, Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop, and just put that all together and roll that out as a complete virtual desktop for your customer.
So I do love hardware, Rich, but thin client hardware is not necessarily the most exciting kind of hardware to talk about, right? Your thin client has a 100 megahertz RISC chip in it. it's slightly more powerful than a TI-86 calculator. But I don't know. Like thin client stuff isn't all that excind I mean, low power, small form factor computing is very interesting. Things like compute sticks, and I find that stuff kind of fascinating. But
so
eventually you're going to hit a point with thin client that you don't need any more than what it is.
Interesting, though, that you bring up the compute stick and that kind of form factor, because that's one of the things that IGEL does. And I don't know a lot about this product, but it's kind of interesting. It's called UD Pocket, and it's basically a USB compute stick that you can plug into more or less any device and turn it into a thin client, which is a very cool model potentially for an end user that doesn't want to replace, if you've got aging desktops or whatever out there and you don't want to replace them, you can extend the life of that hardware just by plugging one of these UD Pocket things into a USB port on that older device, and all of a sudden it's now a perfectly adequate thin client.
Yeah, it doesn't take much horsepower to run whatever it is to connect to the cloud because it's just streaming a picture back basically. So yeah, cool. Well, CloudJumper's in the right space at the right time. With Windows Virtual Desktop coming out and a lot more interest in virtual computing and virtual desktop types of things. So they got to be pretty excited. Were they exuberant when they were talking about this kind of stuff? Jubilant, perhaps?
I'm not sure I would go quite to jubilant, but they were very, very excited. For them, it's a little like there's this box under the Christmas tree, and they're kind of waiting for it to open. We're still in the preview stage, but they know good things are ahead, and they're very excited about it.
Yeah. So I guess we'll kind of move on to our next story here, which I found interesting. So originally, I read this and I'm like, PAX 8 hires industry veteran. And I'm like, we don't normally cover the hiring and the firing of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I got to the end of the sentence and I'm like, for a strategic push into telco. So PAX 8's diving into telco. Into voice, certainly, and SD-WAN and networking. So, one of the themes that we've talked about a bunch on this podcast, and we talk about regularly at ChannelPro, is this whole idea of channel convergence, that the print channel and the IT channel and the telco channel and the audiovisual channel, they're all kind of coming together. Latest illustration of that, and it's a very strategic move on the part of PAX 8. PAX 8 is a cloud distributor. They have been 100% focused on traditional IT workloads in the cloud, Office 365 and security and backup, etc. They have just hired a new executive. He is their chief market development officer, and his name is Andrew Pryfogel. And his past job, there he is, right there.
And there's his picture.
He looks like a smiling, happily employed person.
Yeah, exactly. A guy who just stepped into an interesting new job, because he is the market he is responsible for developing. Basically, is this kind of unified communications, SD-WAN, network connectivity market that PAX 8 is going to be moving into. And the idea very much is to help partners who are living more in the IT world add these kinds of voice and networking services, but also reach out to the traditional telco partners and help bring them into IT offerings, and even connect these two kinds of partners with each other. If you are an IT-focused MSP and you want to be offering voice services and unified communications to your customers to keep other people out of your accounts, but you don't want to build a whole sort of internal practice around that, PAX 8 is thinking we might be able to set you up with one of our telco partners, and they can kind of outsource, handle some of that work for you on an outsourced basis. But big picture, this is just a major move on the part of PAX 8 into a completely different set of technologies that historically have been supported by a different set of partners. I have lost your audio.
Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Okay, sorry about that. So this, I apologize. I've been having to put myself on mute on occasion because I still have this stupid cough.
Okay.
Like, this is like the month-long illness. It's a cough, but it's like it's driving me crazy. And so when I put myself on mute, I'm like hacking that, like I'm dying or something. Did this particular person have like a background, a previous job at like a different VoIP provider or telco provider? Is because the story's kind of about him, like he's going to come in here and like bring something. So what's so exciting about Andrew, other than that he looks like a very nice man?
He's been working in that world. So he's been in the technology world for I think it's 30 years or something like that. But a lot of that has been spent in the telco world, and so he comes to PAX 8 specifically from Intelisys, which is a very big master agent. So he is super familiar with that world and that channel.
Cool. So exciting things from PAX 8 to look forward to.
Yeah, I expect to start hearing from them on a regular basis about partnerships and new solutions that they're adding to the catalog. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how quickly that starts materializing. Yeah,
awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, I think we've got one more story coming out of. Is it also out of Inspire? Because there was a whole deluge of these things.
Yeah, now this one is actually not specifically from Inspire, but it is product news from this week. And hey, Matt, it's hardware.
And I love talking about the hardware. So this is from I like to be very literal in my pronunciations and say Zyxel, but it is actually Zyxel, I believe, is how it's pronounced.
I believe Zyxel is correct. Yeah.
But I think Zyxel sounds kind of more fun. So anyway, either way you want to pronounce it, they ship some new switches designed around specifically for IP surveillance.
Yeah, so it's a new product line for them, and it is 100% specific to video surveillance solutions. And it's the first of what could be several of these kind of vertical product offerings. But they took a look at that use case and thought a little bit about what are the things that would really matter to somebody. What are you really looking for in a switch? What do you need if you're rolling out video surveillance solutions? And it's a big market, a growing market, right? Well, you're probably going to want or be interested in a longer range. So, typically a Zyxel switch can handle up to a 300-foot cable. They've equipped this one so that it can handle up to 820 feet as well, so that if you've got cameras up a big pole somewhere, you don't have to have some sort of booster or something in the middle there. You can do an 800+ foot cable run. They've got bigger power budgets on these devices to support the power requirements of the cameras. They've got extra.
Rich, that's 9,840 inches of cable goodness. It always sounds more impressive when you put it in bigger numbers, doesn't it?
It's true. It's
true. Almost 10,000 inches.
Almost 10,000 inches. Yeah. What would you do with all that distance?
What are you gonna do with all those inches? Besides run cables on them. No. That is a hell of a long run. Without something in the middle of it to boost it. So that is pretty cool.
And they are the first to concede if you're using all 10,000 inches, you will get some performance drop off. But the idea is you're probably hanging one camera off the end of that cable. And I think they said at maximum length, it was 10 megabits per second that you'd be looking at. But 10 megabits per second is probably going to be fine for one video surveillance camera. So
if you're doing a 1080p camera, you should be good with that.
Yeah. So that's a worthwhile trade-off, in this particular use case.
And is that power as well? Is it PoE? Okay,
it is. Yeah, that's important too. And they've got some extra surge protection built in there, both directions. If the camera gets hit by lightning or there's a surge headed out to the cameras. This was kind of interesting, actually. They have the ability. So first of all, they have managed and unmanaged devices. The managed ones, you can reboot the power remotely through a cloud interface that they have. But the devices are set up to keep power flowing to the camera, even if you're rebooting the switch. So in certain scenarios where you need to, update the switch, I don't know, firmware or something like that, but you don't want the camera to come down, you can do that actually, which is kind of interesting. So just, multiple examples of Zyxel kind of looking again at this very specific use case. What are the functions that somebody would want here? We'll build a device that incorporates all that. And now they're kind of thinking, what are some other areas like that we might be able to expand into in the future? And they didn't announce specific plans to do this, but they said, you could imagine switches that are optimized for VoIP, for example, and there might be some features that you would really want for that particular workload that we could build around.
I like this. I like the idea of customized, purpose-built switches. I think that's neat. I think that's smart. I am not 100% following the don't bring the camera down thing, but there's got to be a reason for that. And it's not because you still want the camera accessible, because if you're operating the firmware on a switch, you're not going to still be able to access the camera through it. But it's maybe just because a lot of these cameras take a while to boot up, or maybe I'm interested. I'm curious why that's a cool feature. It is neat.
Yeah, well, I'll give you one real-world example that just happens to come to mind because Luis Alvarez, and he speaks at our events this year, and he's talking about this IoT business that he's got off the ground, which is focused on the cannabis industry in his home state of California. And there are laws in the state of California, if you are, I believe it, if you're operating in any part of the cannabis, supply chain, if you're a distributor, if you're a retailer, every square inch of your facility has to be monitored by video surveillance at all times. And if the camera is down for any reason, for any length of time, your business must shut down too.
If you're updating the switch, though, the video feeds from those cameras are not accessible. It sounds like it's giving power to them, which
right. Yes.
I mean, and that cuts down on the downtime, because you don't have to bring the cameras back up. And then some of those cameras, I don't know, they might have that might be a pain in the butt or take forever to come online. But but that seems like, I don't know. There's got to be another reason.
Well,
but I don't know what it is. We should ask Mr. Luis Alvarez. Yeah. He probably knows, since he's into that business. But I'd be curious. But it's cool. Long story short, I like the idea of purpose-built switches. I think this is smart to think about how these switches are going to be used, and to tailor the features to make them more ideal for certain purposes. And that probably means a lot more margin too. I'm sure if I was rolling out a video surveillance solution, I would pay a lot more money for a switch that's built around that, because then I don't have to put repeaters in, because it said it handles a lot longer cable runs, and also it's nice looking. That's a nice looking switch, Rich. Look at all those ports. Yeah, you see a lot of RJ45 stacked all together. It just makes my heart smile.
Honest to goodness, Matt, they sent me a whole bunch of product shots, and these devices come with as few as 6 ports and as many as I think 24. And I chose the one with lots of ports because I thought Matt's going to like this picture.
I like seeing lots of ports. Now you could also for our readers, you could also add the other images to a little gallery at the bottom. It's real easy to do that.
That's true.
So, we'll put links. I've been dropping links into the live chat for the live streams. So hopefully you've been following along as you're watching. But if you're listening after the fact, or if you're watching the video like on YouTube after the live stream, I put all the links in the description of the video for YouTube, and we have a show notes page on our site for every episode. So if you're listening, you can go to the page for that particular show, and you'll have links to all the stories and links to this beautiful looking gray switch with lots of ports.
Yeah,
it looks nice. All right. I like talking about hardware. And hey, you know what, Rich? We get to talk about more hardware, believe it or not.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so let's go on to our next story. So we did in our July episode a story that we've kind of done every year. We do some kind of hardware roundup, and I usually have a fun twist on them. I'll let you kind of introduce that.
Yeah, so a few years back, as I was plotting out our July issue, I thought, okay, we're sort of at the midpoint of the year. I will go to Matt and I will say, hey, why don't you just put together an article that just calls attention to hardware products you've seen in the last 6 months or so that you think are especially interesting. Let's do a mid-year hardware roundup kind of story. And I just sent that your way and went off about my business. And we've been doing it in the July issue ever since then. I think this is the fourth of these, maybe at least that we've done this year. But
I think at least four.
Yeah, probably more than that. And I would be delighted if Matt just kind of came back with a roundup of interesting products. But after a while, that just rounding up a few interesting products does not interest Matt.
Yeah, this is actually 5 because the first one it was just a roundup of products.
Okay.
And then the next year when you came back and said, let's do another hardware roundup, I'm like, well, I kind of did that. So then we came up with a fun way. And the first one was it was the hardware hit parade, wasn't it? Was that what
I think so.
Kicked it off?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was I was crazy and decided that I think we talked about this in a previous show, so pardon us for if you've heard the story before, but Miss Cecilia Galvin, who asked me to do it, she's like, we wanted to do another hardware roundup story. Let's do some kind of like hardware hit parade or something like that. She used the word parade. And I decided like, I'm going to take that literally, and I'm going to write it as 2 parade commentators actually watching a parade of floats. But the floats are like hardware coming down the street with all the cheesy banter that you would expect from like, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. And it was just spectacular. I thought it was funny. Some of my humor did not make it in though, because we have a copy editor who tries to keep me from getting into trouble.
Always looking out for you, man.
That's what we try. So that's kind of the story, but I've done one as the hardware hit parade. I did one as like a beauty contest. I did one. What was the other one? My memory's not very good.
The movie.
Last year. Yeah, I kind of related hardware to summer blockbusters last summer, and that was super funny and great humor if you love to kind of make fun of movies and learn a little bit about hardware. But anyway, so this time, Rich, I decided that it was time to pack up our ChannelPro readers onto the bus and take them on safari.
Indeed, the ChannelPro tours into the wild hardware safari.
Yes.
Are you gonna? Well, you have to tell people what that's all about. But I'm waiting to see if you do the accent.
Yeah. My voice is not feeling very good, so I may not try to do accents.
Okay.
I might sneak a little bit in there though if my throat clears up enough. So I'm trying. As you can tell, I'm trying to limit my talking as much as I can, which is really hard for me because I love the sound of my own voice, Rich. So I decided to get everybody on safari. So I wrote this from the perspective that we are getting on a bus. We were actually in like the African savannah or jungle, and like this hardware is actually like living animals and living species out in the wild, and we're going to go observe them. So I'll take you through a couple of our stops, and then we'll put the link in. And I mean, I covered 5 different products. We don't need to cover all 5 on the show, but we'll cover a few. But one of the fun things, Rich, that I did was, you know how when you're like watching documentaries about like species and stuff, and they always give you the scientific name of the animal, like this is the African elephant, blah blah blah, and then it's like Aphentus lamostus lacariasta mobentus, like some kind of really crazy Latin name. So I decided to do that for all the hardware that's mentioned in the piece. So I give them all scientific animal names. So our first stop is to a nest of hatching core mobile processors, as I call it, Processum Corealis minimus. because these are the new Intel Core Mobile 10th generation Core M or Core mobile processors that are going to be powering laptops. So these are processors are obviously a symbiote, right? Because they don't live on their own. They embed themselves into other animals or other species of hardware and enhance them with more functions. So it's a good relationship between these core processors, the Processum Coriolis Minimus, and other native species of hardware. So of course we talk a lot about some of the new features that are going to be in it. So it's going to be Intel Wi-Fi 6. They're building in Thunderbolt 3, and they're going to be smaller, faster, more efficient. As every generation of processor does. This is a rapidly evolving species, Rich. And they were just hatched, and they're going to be making their way into other devices soon. And you can actually go to the site. You can see the nest with the recent hatchlings right in there.
Don't disturb the nest.
Nope, yeah. Don't disturb the nest. So anyway, so we move on our tour, and we move next into the off in the distance in the brush. There is a new gaming notebook, the Omen. Computum Mobilis Notebookius Extremis is what class of species this is. So that's talking about the new HP Omen X2S, which has evolved with a mutation with a second screen right above the keyboard that does all the different kinds of things during gaming. It's assignable, so you can put like your health dashboard for your game, or you can put options and settings depending on what you're doing. You can also, from a productivity perspective, you can kind of put any window there, so you're going to have something in that window and then something above. So I thought that was pretty cool. You want to make one more stop, or do you want to just kind of go through it?
It's up to your voice. I'm good with another stop if you can handle it.
Which stop should we do? Should we talk about we do run across a species of mouse, where this, I won't tell you, have to go read the story if you want to see which species of mouse, but it was a species long thought extinct, but there is a place where it's breeding and taking back over, and even new generations, new entries into this species of mouse is returning to market, and it's pretty exciting. But our tour bus was attacked, Rich. Did you know that?
No, that sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it was attacked. So we had a brush with an augmented reality device that while on tour snuck on board while we were out looking at the mice, and attached itself to our heads and was confusing everybody with their visions. People were seeing things that weren't actually there. So that was really scary and exciting. You can go read the story and see what happened and how we got through that. Those augmented reality device, that was the Periphem Visius Augmentum, was the species that was doing that. So we did that, but I think more importantly, we should end where we ended, which was the IoT innovation quarantine. So, Rich, there's the IoT devices are Connectivus Devicium is what these are called. All the IoT, it's a blowing up market, expanding rapidly, new products, sensors everywhere. And so far, they've been quarantined in this remote area, and we went there. But as you can see, it's ready to bust out, and we almost got stampeded by the Computum Service Ejectus, some edge servers, which is another big growing market. There was almost a stampede and almost took our lives, but we managed to escape. It's a dangerous world out there in the world of hardware in the wild. But we did make it back. Everyone survived. It was a great tour, I think. Lots of excitement. and everybody got a souvenir mouse pad, or as we call it, the Periphem Mouseus Surfictus. They went to the gift shop and got one of those because of the attack on their lives. So, what did you enjoy the tour, Rich?
I did, and hats off to our art director Dave Law for all the art around this, both online. We're both looking at the online version here, obviously, but this shows up in the July issue of the magazine as well. Dave really went to town with the concepts you were handing him.
Well, I like to give Dave credit where credit is due, but I actually am the one that made all the images, other than the guy in the brush with the binoculars. That was a stock image that I think they found, but I actually did all the art for this one.
Well, then hats off to you. I did not know that until just now. It's great stuff.
Yep. I went all in, and I put up on the screen here here's the picture of the processors in the nest, and then the omen and the brush, and you're gonna see the mouse there. And then this one, I'll talk about this one. So if you're watching the video, so you can see some of these pictures. But there's the picture of the guy with the AR headset. That's actually the PR shot of this guy. But I actually removed the entire background and put him on like a bus.
Yeah,
like a tour bus. Yeah. So it was good times. I had fun with this one. If everybody likes it, I will probably do another one like this, because I had a lot of fun coming up with the scientific device names, and the whole narrative was a good time. I really do wish I had another page though, because we only get to do 5 stops. So I hopefully if we do it again in the future, not next year, it'll be sometime, it'll be a new idea next year, but we might come back to this one because it was really fun, and we could go with this one all day. But I'd like 3 pages, Mr. Rich, so I can make so we can visit. I'd like to get a good 8 to 10 stops, on our tour, a little bit longer tour, a 3-hour tour, if you will. So anyway, that's Into the Wild, the hardware safari. I hope everybody got a kick out of that one. Story is online now, so if you want to go to the show notes page or to the description on the video, you find a link to it. You'll have a laugh with it, because it's a whole big narrative, not just about the products, but with the tour guide. Crikey, we got over there in the brush. There's you can just hear the narrative and live it yourself.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we're going to move on from the hardware safari, unless you got anything else you want to say.
No, let's roll on.
All right, we're rolling on. Profit fuel. This is the kind of profit you pump into your car, right? No, or this is different fuel.
Or your business. Or your business.
Business fuel. Where is the tank for business fuel in most offices?
That's right inside your skull.
It's in the skull. So the business fuel exits the building every day with you. There's not just it's not like in the bathroom, like some kind of tank, next to the little hot water heater.
No. Especially now in the age of mobile technology, the tank is coming with you everywhere you go.
So what is the profit fuel? This is part 2. There was a part 1.
There was. So there's, I can't remember if we've got 3 or 4 parts planned for this year. I think it's 3 parts, this series called Profit Fuel. And the idea basically is just that as, cloud platforms like Azure and Office 365 commoditize some of the ways that channel pros have been making their money historically. They're all out looking for replacements for that margin that they were collecting before, and the next big high profit place to take their business. We started out, part 1 had to do with higher order cloud consulting kinds of opportunities that you could offer. Part 2, which ran in the July issue and is now available online, has to do with CRM and ERP services. So at Dave's Cyber show, at the SMB Tech Fest show yesterday, one of the attendees came up to me at one point and was sort of talking about how, we do managed services today, but we can just see the writing on the wall. and it's just going to be harder and harder to really run a business around basic IT maintenance kinds of work. That's going to become more automated. It'll become more centralized. As software as a service is that much more widely adopted, people aren't going to need as much of what we used to do before. And so, hey, Rich, what should we be doing instead to keep the business going? And I said, what you want to be looking for is those opportunities. And this is not a phrase or a concept that we invented at ChannelPro, but we talk a lot about moving up the value stack, essentially looking for functions that you can perform as a partner that a server, no matter how artificially intelligent it is, can't do at all or nearly as well today and probably for a long time to come. And CRM/ERP fits right into that bucket there, because yes, there's software involved in rolling out licenses, and theoretically you can automate that kind of process. But to really do the right job with that software, you've got to understand the end user's business, their objectives, their pain points and challenges. You've got to really be able to provide some business insight to them to help them customize and configure that solution to do what they need to really get value from it. And that's not something that's going to be automated, and it's something that's very sticky. It's very valuable. And it's something that your customers are going to pay you a lot of money to do. And so this article, essentially, which was written by our own managing editor, Colleen Fry, based on a lot of input from partners who have introduced a CRM and or ERP service, provides a lot of good specific pointers on some of the things that you're going to have to do to get that kind of a practice off the ground. And, she talks a lot about the expectations in terms of the margin you'll make and so on, but also about the people you're going to have to hire and the vendor relationships you're going to have to consider and what kinds of attributes to look for in a vendor, et cetera. But this is not the first time, even probably in the last 12 months, that we've written about CRM in particular as an opportunity for readers, and Salesforce within the CRM category. Salesforce it's a big company. It's from a growth standpoint, a juggernaut right now. And the biggest issue that they run into, the biggest problem that's slowing their growth right now is they don't have enough partners to meet demand from end users. There's more need for Salesforce services than Salesforce itself can accommodate through its channel right now. So, there is definitely investment required to get into that market, and it's a different kind of market than you might be used to. But if you make that effort, you will be stepping into business immediately, because there are customers on wait lists right now, waiting for somebody to come in and help them optimize a Salesforce deployment.
Yeah, and there's a lot of margin in those solutions, but there's also, you need a lot of expertise in order to properly deploy it. Mm-hmm. And so it's not that there's not enough partners to just sell it, but you can't really just sell it. You really do need to show the customers the way and help them optimize it around their business. And that is a big opportunity for sure.
Yeah, no question. And again, it's not a super easy one to just step into overnight, but
it takes a lot of learning. Those are very complex solutions, and not only do you have to learn what their solution can do in Salesforce, and it can do a lot of stuff, as can Dynamics, but you got to learn how to wrap it around a customer's business and make it work for them, and that's 2 layers of complexity. Yeah,
and the second one is really hard because a typical MSP today, the owner is hopefully capable of having a business conversation with the customer, but they may not have anyone else really who can kind of come in and understand business processes and workflows and help a customer sort of optimize those and tailor them to the capabilities of a solution. You're probably going to need to either hire somebody who already has those skills or help somebody on your staff now acquire those capabilities. And somebody quoted in the article talks about having trained somebody. He had a salesperson, I think it was, on staff who already had communication skills for talking with a customer. And so it was not a huge jump for that person to become more of a business process optimization kind of consultant. And it was something that person was interested in doing. But you're going to have to kind of figure out how to have that kind of dialogue with the client to be good at this. Are you muted again, my friend?
That time I think my mic just cut out. There we go.
Okay, there we are.
To me, I got to fix. If you are going to really dive into CRM as an opportunity, this is because of what you were talking about. This is where I think verticalization makes a lot of sense. Learn a specific industry, because there's a huge difference between a doctor's office and a bakery and a nuts and bolts manufacturer and a school and a government office. But there's not a lot of difference in terms of deployment between one doctor's office and another. So once you can really get a handle on one particular type of business and how to deploy something like this effectively, go specialize, go after that. And I think people would find a lot more success, and they wouldn't be so daunted trying to figure out how to wrap this around every kind of business that's out there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to help you get a practice off the ground that much faster if you are really only trying to master one set of challenges and opportunities instead of a whole bunch of them at once. And then, obviously you open up the possibility of referrals at that point. If you get good at doing doctor's offices, you can kind of expand from one to the next there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. All right, it's a good article. There's lots in there. I'm interested to see part 3. Did we link to part 1 in this?
I don't believe so. Unless we should probably at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, I didn't see it. We should probably link to part 1 to help if this is going to be a series. But we'll put a link to this, and then we'll get a link in the article to part 1 as well. So that way you can check out all of these different types of profit fuel stations. We're like the gas station of profit now. Mm-hmm. Are we ethanol based, or are we nuclear?
I like nuclear. Yeah, whatever's hottest.
Whatever's hottest. I like it. So yeah, definitely check that out. All right, Rich, we've got about 15 minutes left until you got to go. But we could do a hardware and tech pick if we got time, or we could wrap it up a little early and save it for when we know we have a little more time, because sometimes we go off the rails with these. So I'm going to leave it up to you.
Well, and I was just going to turn it around on you, because A, there's the issue with your voice, and then B, you would be kind of doing the presenting here. So, I mean, if you think you can do it in 15 minutes, I'd love to hear it. But
I think I could. I think I could wrap this up pretty quick. So my museum pick today was something that we mentioned during episode 100 that I have, and it's Microsoft related, given the Microsoft Inspire show. So this is a piece of consumer tech, but it's kind of a fun one, and it'll give us a little something to talk about. So my museum pick is this guy right here. Rich, do you know what this is?
I don't.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a big hard drive, but it says Xbox 360 on it, which is kind of confusing. So Microsoft released the Xbox 360 a little bit before the PlayStation 3 back in the day. And the PlayStation 3, Sony made a decision to put a Blu-ray drive. It was their new format. And that was a decision that they made inspired by their decision to put a DVD player in the PlayStation 2, which paid off for them really, really big. That was a bold move by them back in the day, and it helps cement DVD as a mainstream video playback format. DVD didn't have a lot of competition per se, but the PlayStation 2 really drove DVD into a lot of homes and kind of secured DVD as that format. And Sony at the time was fighting a format war, kind of like the old Betamax versus VHS war at the time, and they decided to shove a Blu-ray drive into the PlayStation 3. That was a bold move, especially since Blu-ray drives were not very. There was a lot of interesting decisions with the PlayStation 3, but PlayStation 3 was really, really expensive, like $600, $700 expensive when it first launched. Partly because they decided to put a Blu-ray drive into it in hopes to try and win the format war against the other one at the time, which was called HD DVD. Microsoft didn't really have a whole lot invested into really either format. They were on the board for the HD DVD consortium, which was kind of backed by Toshiba at the time. And Toshiba was one of the major ones of the DVD format. So that was kind of their successor to DVD was HD DVD. Now Microsoft built support for HD DVD into Windows Vista, if I remember correctly. And this is going back, and my memory isn't quite what it used to be. But I believe that they decided to build support for HD DVD into Windows Vista, and that was a bold move. So they kind of started to back that horse. But when they released the Xbox 360, they decided to keep costs down, and they only released it with a DVD drive. Now that put them at a disadvantage because it was one console could do this new format of high definition movies, whereas the Xbox 360 could not. So eventually they decided to release an add-on HD DVD drive for the Xbox 360. So this is kind of where they put their money. And ultimately, HD DVD did not succeed as the future format. It wasn't actually long after they released this drive that Toshiba just kind of threw up their arms and folded. And there was lots of interesting reasons why. I actually wrote a very long analysis at the time of not necessarily why HD DVD failed, but I was kind of in the camp that I wanted HD DVD to be the successor, and they had everything that they needed to make HD DVD a success, a mainstream success, but they really didn't play all their advantages. They didn't play their strengths, and they really screwed up. And by the time with the PS3 out there and Blu-ray catching on, the writing was kind of on the wall, and HD DVD didn't. They just decided to just give it up. So this is kind of an old relic of the Xbox 360. Is this HD DVD player that is perfect fodder for a museum?
Yeah.
Now did you have an HD DVD player?
No, actually. And in fact, I can't even visualize what the discs look like. I mean,
they look identical, actually, to a Blu-ray, pretty much. They were both blue laser technology. HD DVD had one of the reasons why I thought HD DVD would be a worthy and better successor is because HD DVD discs could have been constructed where it could have been a DVD on one layer of the disc and an HD DVD on another. So they had the ability to manufacture one disc with both formats. And I thought that was really smart. And I really was hounding them in my coverage that is a huge advantage, right? Because they were all trying to sell these movies for like $50, $60, and it didn't make sense. And the reasons were stupid. And I'm like, you really want this to take off? You really want to win? Don't release DVD anymore, right? They had the backing of Time Warner and all these other movie companies. It's like, make one disc that has DVD and HD DVD on it, and just sell that. Don't sell a separate DVD case anymore, and sell it for a reasonable price. And people will buy HD DVD players to play the HD layer eventually. But they didn't really do that. They released HD DVD standalone discs and DVDs. The DVDs were reasonably priced. The HD versions of the movies were just redonkulously expensive. And then eventually just Blu-ray won out. So kind of weird. That was what it was one. They made a million marketing mistakes with HD DVD as well. And so that's that. Now, did you own a Betamax or a VHS, Rich?
VHS.
No Betamax for you, huh?
I cannot remember having a Betamax in my life at any point. No.
Yeah, and actually, DVD did have a competitor. If you remember back in the day, it was called DivX. Do you remember that?
Oh, DIVX?
DIVX, yeah. Not the video codec, but the actual disc player. There was a disc player called DivX. Do you remember that at all or no?
Yeah, well, now when you mention the codec, it's like, well, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. But it rings a bell. Yeah,
it was a bold move. This was Circuit City who did this, and they were kind of behind this. So the whole shtick behind DivX was that you would buy this player, and the players were pretty reasonably priced, and it was like a disc player. And then you would go and you would quasi buy a DVD. Now, this was when DVDs were still a little bit more expensive. They weren't ridiculously priced. DVD was fairly reasonable from the beginning, but they had this plan that like, we're going to sell you a player, and then you're going to go into Circuit City and you're going to buy a disc, and the movie's going to be like $5. Okay, $5, cheap, right? Why buy it on DVD for $30 or $25 when you could buy it on DivX for $5? You take it home, you put it in your player, and you could watch it for 48 hours. And then if you want it, and then you had the movie, it was there on your shelf. But if you wanted to watch it again, you had to pay. So you had like an account. So it was kind of like a at-home movie rental service in a way. The difference is you would keep the disc and you would just pay every time you put it in your player. So every time you put it in your player, it would like, and you hit yes, you would unlock the disc for another like 24 hours of playback. And then when you were done watching it, put it back on the shelf. And if you ever wanted to watch it again. So it was an interesting model. Yeah. And the fact that it worked really well for people who might rent a movie and maybe never watch it again, because then you were just basically renting them. You were essentially renting the movie, but the whole buying it, owning it, and then like having to pay all the time, it was a crazy business model, and it totally failed and didn't work. But it was kind of ahead of its time if you think about it.
Yeah, no, very, very creative actually, and I mean, you could imagine it working for almost any. The only place where it would clearly not work is that one movie that your kids just cannot watch too many times, and you don't want to be paying $5 a shot to, Yeah,
I don't think it was $5 after that. I think it was like $2 for subsequent 24-hour views. But it was like everybody panned this thing at the time, myself included. I thought the business model was absolutely insane, and I'm like, I would never buy a device that I have to buy the movies for just to pay every time to watch it. I'm like, it's just crazy. It's crazy to me. But it was actually I think a little ahead of the time. Something like that today might actually work. Yeah. But now we don't really need physical movie formats. I mean, the streaming is really taking over, and why do that when you can just do all you can eat on Netflix or Hulu or whatever movie services? And we have Redbox, so that's kind of what Redbox is, except you don't buy a specialized player at home to play them. So maybe that was the whole thing. I don't know, crazy. Anyway, we got 4 minutes. We better wrap up. I'll do a tech pick. That was then the HD DVD player for the Xbox 360. My tech pick, let's say it's the Xbox One X. It plays HD movies, and it plays video games, and it's Microsoft. This is Microsoft Inspire Week, so there's your tech pick, the Xbox One X. Rich, tell us what has been and what might be to come on the ChannelPro Network site in the future.
In terms of what has been, we spent a whole bunch of time talking about partner news out of Inspire, and honestly, we just scratched the surface of news from there. So if you want to read more about what Microsoft partners we're talking about at the Inspire show this week, then you want to go to our In Case You Missed It post. Shows up every Friday on ChannelProNetwork.com. It was written by our James Gaskin, who would be only too happy to tell you some more about news from Microsoft partners. There was actually quite a bit of security news for some reason or other this week that had nothing to do with Microsoft. And then I won't go into the specifics, but he came up with actually between the two of us, we came up with 3 really bizarre stories involving animals that prove animals are just like us. They take drugs and loiter and eat too much. And well, you'll see what we mean when you check out the column. And then looking ahead to next week, a quieter week. We're kind of in that summer period where things slow down a little bit. But our friends at the ASCII Group have their next show coming up in Denver, and our very own Joel Zaidspinner will be there. And the National Retail Federation, the NRF Next show is taking place in Las Vegas next week. That's kind of their newfangled technology show for the retail industry, and we don't have anyone attending, but could be some interesting news coming out of there.
Very cool. Sounds like an exciting week ahead of interesting stuff to read. And yes, the animals do exhibit many of the interesting behaviors that people do. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's all about. And it ties in well with our wild animal hardware story. So very cool. All right. Well, if I hope everyone enjoyed episode 111. If you would like to subscribe, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can watch the video versions on demand on YouTube after the live stream is over. Usually we are pretty good about getting them up within a day or so now. So if you want, go to YouTube and you can subscribe. But then you can subscribe, and that doesn't really mean anything anymore, other than that you did it. But if you want to get notified, which is kind of more important, if you want to like know when we put new videos out, there's like a bell, and you got to hit the bell. And eventually, you'll have to subscribe, hit a bell, and then do a dance. And when we know what dance you have to do in order to get a notification, we'll let you know. But for now, it's just a bell, so it's a little easier, less exercise, less hard work. Subscribe bell. If you want to subscribe to the audio version of the podcast, which we totally recommend, because it can come down and you can listen to it anywhere you are, no matter what you're doing, driving, on the plane, in the bus, cutting the grass. Audio is a great way to go. You can go to iTunes, Google Play Podcast, Stitcher. You can go to our website, go to any of the ChannelPro Network show notes pages. There's an RSS feed. You can plop into any RSS reader or any podcast app that's out there, and poof, amazingly, the shows will just trickle down as we put them out there, and you can have ChannelPro Weekly with you everywhere you go. Doesn't that sound exciting, Rich?
That's a wonderful thing. Thank you, technology.
Thank you, technology. Please do that. If you do go to any of those services, like iTunes or YouTube or whatever, if you like the show, please leave a comment or two. A positive comment would be nice, but we'll listen to anything. If you want to email us, you can email us podcast@channelpronetwork.com, and we'll be happy to address any letters or questions here on the show. If you do watch live, we also have a live chat going. So if we're not very good about putting the time out in advance, so we don't get a lot of live stream watchers, but eventually we will be better about that. And then if you want to join us live while we record, we'd be happy to have you post questions, and we'll interact with you right here on the show, right on the air. Wouldn't that be fun? More fun, Rich. We need every IT pro needs more fun.
And they've come to the right source.
They sure have. Fun and education, all in one place. So email address podcast@channelpronetwork.com. If you want to follow us on Facebook, we are ChannelPro Network on Facebook. We are at ChannelPro SMB on the Twitter, and of course, the number one destination for your web browser, be it on your desktop or your mobile device, should be channelpronetwork.com, where each and every day we got the news of the day, stories, great insight, knowledge stuff for your business, flowing up there like water. It's a constant stream of information by the fine folks here at ChannelPro and other industry pros around the industry that we work with to get great content for you. So please bookmark that and head there each and every single day. Rich, if they wanted to follow you on a social network like Twitter, what would you be?
They would go to @RichFree.
And you can follow them there if you want to follow me. I don't post a lot, but if you'd like to follow me when I do post, you'll get them. I'm at Matt Whitlock on Twitter. So you can do that on the Twitters, and I think that's it. So on behalf of everyone here at ChannelPro Weekly, thank you very much for joining us in episode 111, and we will see you all next week.